virtual town hall meeting. We are at our 23rd week, and we thank everyone that's on the call and also those who are on social media. We are very honored tonight, again, to just bring the community some information on our COVID-19 and also information again on our openings. One of the top hot issues in our community moving forward, we know that many of the parents were having questions about the openings of our school. So tonight we have with us again our superintendent, Mr. Hassan. We have Dr. Harvest, the assistant superintendent. We have Mrs. Champagne, the assistant superintendent, and we have Ms. Santo, the director of special education. And we also have with us a lady who does not need an introduction, who's been with us for the last 23 weeks with this COVID and giving an update on what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and that's no other than Dr. Griffin that's with us tonight. So what I want to do just very quickly is just open up by saying that those who are on the call, you get an opportunity to ask these questions tonight. I know for the last few weeks or last few months that many of us some questions in the district have been getting questions and surveys went out. So tonight it gives us again for our probably third time to discuss what is going to be the openings of our school in terms of our school district. But before we do that, I just want Dr. Griffin to again, as always, give an update on the COVID-19 because I know that as she has been stressing, again, I have to use these weeks for the last 23 weeks that we have been talking about COVID. Just give you an overview that it's still here. We still have to be vigilant. We still have to do the things that we need to do to keep each other safe and healthy. So very quickly, I want to turn it over to Dr. Griffin. Then we're going to go right into our discussion about the opening of our school district and what's the rules and regulations. Dr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Within the state, we've seen an increase in the number of positive COVID cases, but fortunately, here within the city, we've remained relatively steady. Within the state, there are a total number of 188,527 positive cases. That represents an increase in 100 cases since yesterday and 1,933 cases since last week, our last town hall as of last week. As far as the deaths are concerned, the COVID-related deaths are concerned, there's a total within the state of 14,103 deaths. And that represents an increase in 6 cases since yesterday, or 6 deaths since yesterday, and 49 since last week. Within the county, there are a total number of 19,855 positive cases. That's the same since yesterday, and slightly increased since last week. As far as the Essex County deaths, there are a total number of 1,851 cases, and that also is steady since last week. As far as the negative cases, that's increasing, and that's positive news that we're starting to see more and more negative cases as well. And so there's a total number of 141,815 negative cases within the county, and that represents an increase in 1,262 cases since yesterday and 9,198 since last week. So again, we're seeing an increase in the number of negative cases here within the county. As far as here within the city is concerned, again, our number is steady. As of today, there are 2,036 positive cases total, and that's the same as last week. Also, with regard to the number of deaths, there are 227, and that too has remained the same. And so I think that's, again, a testament to what everybody's been doing and the precautions that everybody's been taking. So we strongly encourage everyone to continue to do what you know to do, to protect yourself, to protect others, to protect your family, because that's the only way that we'll continue to remain steady. And it's even more important as we approach the flu season. And so before I go into talking a little bit about COVID and the flu, I do want to give the ward breakdown. Within the first ward, there are 327 cases. Within the second ward, there are 386 cases. Within the third ward, there are 470 cases. Within the fourth ward, there are 473 cases. And within the fifth ward, there are 455 cases. So again, it's very important to continue to wear your masks. It's very important to continue to wash your hands, distance yourself from other individuals. Don't get too comfortable, because even though we're fine or steady here within the city, the state is still evidencing and seeing increases in positive cases. And we still have a lot of individuals traveling. So it's important to still do what you know to do to protect yourself and protect the community. It's also very important to still go and get tested, because when we were talking previously about asymptomatic cases and individuals who don't feel like they have symptoms, there are many people who've gone and gotten tested and they have tested positive. So you still need to know what your status is as it relates to COVID, so you make sure that you're protecting your loved ones and protecting those that you encounter. We're offering testing tomorrow at our Elmwood location at 161 Elmwood Avenue from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's not the only site that you can visit to get tested, because there are multiple here within the city, but we strongly encourage you to continue to go out and get tested. And as the flu season is approaching in September and October, we're already at the end of August. And as the flu season is approaching, remember that the flu is a respiratory illness in the same way that COVID is a respiratory illness, but they're caused by different viruses. So you have to make sure that you protect yourself, get your flu vaccine. It's even more important now, because you don't want to complicate any situation as we go into flu season with COVID still being present. So thank you. We are offering flu vaccines. We'll announce more and share more information about that as time goes on. It's going to be for children. It's also going to be for adults. But again, we're one resource at the health department. You can also consider contacting your primary care physician or your child's pediatrician in order to learn more about the flu vaccine as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Griffin. So again, as I have been saying for the last 23 weeks of this COVID, as Dr. Griffin gave the information, again, it's still important for all of us to make sure that we protect ourselves with our masks, social distance, and making sure that, you know, again, probably heard this a million times in the last few months, making sure you wash your hands 20 seconds. So we got to continue to do those things, which brings me into the importance of the next conversation, and that's around opening up our schools. We know that our governor has been having conversations for the last few months about the proper way and the things we need to do in terms of, especially our superintendents throughout of New Jersey, how to open up. So we're definitely honored to have this panel of individuals who are going to be the experts in answering these questions, and also leading the charge in how these schools are going to open up. So I'm just going to turn it over to our superintendent, Mr. Hassan. If you got an intro, you can do an intro. I do have some questions, but I'll wait till you do your intro, then I'll float the questions around.
Well, again, I want to just thank you, Mayor, for inviting my team here this evening. Yes. To discuss the school reopening plan. As we previously stated before, is that it's a fluid plan. It's subject to change because CDC changes, our federal and state and local guidance changes. So with that being said, a couple of weeks ago, the governor had announced that school districts have the option to go full remote. Just prior to that, he was only offering as a full remote for opt-out students. So now districts had the opportunity throughout the state of New Jersey, who had already actually requested full remote. That weighed heavy on the governor. So the governor gave an opportunity for many districts to look at that option. As we're aware and we see in the media, Hudson County has also decided the whole county, all the school districts are going full remote. And so even in our county, several districts have already looked at going full remote. We, as a team, had an opportunity, and Mayor, you would truly appreciate this, is that we had an opportunity today. The team had we hosted the urban and some of the other superintendents around our county, which included Montclair, I think Irvington, Essex Commission, and Orange. And we also had conversation with Newark, as well as Dr. Ronnie Thompson from South Orange Maplewood. I don't think I forgot anybody. So we had a great conversation because some of it revolves around innovative thoughts about reopening, as well as our parallel concerns about reopening and what does that look like. As we know, the East Orange, and we sent out messaging and also on our social media platforms that we have also petitioned the state of New Jersey to allow us to go remote for 30 to 60 days. And with a reassessment throughout the process, because as you're aware, Mayor, we want to open schools because we know, and Ms. Champagne will talk about that in the sense of how we're impacted with our learning loss.
Right.
And we know our students don't always learn the best at home. Some can and some cannot. But
Right.
we want to make sure we accommodate our kids. And even though we're looking at going full remote, we want to address, and also Ms. Santos to talk about that, is that we're also charged with looking at how we will bring vulnerable populations of student back, even though we will be full remote. So we want to phase in staff, we want to phase in the students, with the vulnerable population, and also the students. And one of the questions I saw earlier is that when will we go hybrid? And we have a plan for that as well, and we will discuss that later on.
Right, right.
But in this orientation, in this discussion, is that we're trying to be forward thinking throughout this process and working with the many stakeholders, as to thank the Board of Ed, the East Orange Education Administrative Association, and the EOEA for being partners and also sharing their concerns, because we meet with them and other stakeholders throughout the district. So I don't want to, that's somewhat the orientation, and I really I'm looking forward to the questioning, because that's when the rubber meets the road.
Right.
Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you very much for that, Mr. Superintendent. So, listen, let's get right into the conversation. You kind of talked about the learning loss, right? So I'm going to ask Ms. Champagne get right into the conversation about that. Then we can go into the safety and the health and the schools. But let's get right into that, because I know that's very important.
So ultimately, the concept that we're in a pandemic means that we have to put safety and healthy first. And putting safety and healthy first, then we had to really look at that torn between, do we start off with a hybrid sector, bringing individuals in, and then pull back and seeing what's going on across the country. There's been several states and school districts that have opened up the schools, brought individual students back in, and then they've had to turn around and close their schools within 2 to 3 weeks. And so with looking at those trends going on, then we really had to stop and think, what would be the best thing for us to do for our students here, our children here in East Orange? And the remote option does seem like the safest option. But it doesn't mean that we don't have several variables that make that challenging. We left out at the end of the school year not one-to-one with devices. We received CARES money where we've allocated over $1 million for devices so that we could be one-to-one with our students, and we are now running into a situation where everyone has ordered devices from the same place. These devices are coming in from China, and we have to now go back and rethink, how are we going to do that? So earlier in March, when we first went to remote learning, it was a situation where we petitioned to the parents that who really needed devices at that time would be the ones that we would give devices to first. Another concern that we have, what we found out, is I believe Dr. Harvest had mentioned at one point, that we had about 238 homeless students. And on top of that, we have what would be a language divide with our ESL bilingual pop. A lot of times when working and navigating with the parents, there are the concerns with internet access, and whether or not, even with going remote and technology, how do we do that? So when planning throughout the summer this year with the team under the direction of Mr. Hassan, some of the things that we've done as recently as today, reaching out to T-Mobile, looking at getting more hotspots so that we can add them to the Chromebooks that we do have, so we can begin to accommodate those families that didn't have internet access. We've been in constant communication with Comcast. At one point last year, they offered what would be a $10 plan. I believe this school year they're offering what is a $20 plan. And then it's also, how are we navigating through the millions of different Google Classrooms that maybe a parent had to go to a different classroom for each class that their child had, and then opening up a new learning management system, which is Schoology. And as early as September the 3rd, we will be offering workshops to our parents on how to navigate through Schoology. We'll be offering evening workshops in French Creole and Spanish for our parents, so that we can make sure that there is as many opportunities as we can to share what's going on in the education environment with our parents, with our students, so that we are trailblazing of first there with what we want to do with education. So in this remote learning aspect, then ideally is what you talk about, the asynchronous versus the synchronous learning. And that synchronous learning, a lot of times we get remote learning confused with virtual learning, and the virtual and whether or not it's going to be this face-to-face chat with the teachers and the students, and why we encourage that, that is a variable for us. There are issues that have happened on virtual chats that have been indecent exposures or inappropriateness that's been on there that we have to monitor. So we have to be very careful on how we move forward with that, making sure we are protecting our students, that we are protecting our staff, but we are making sure that learning is going on as well too. The other thing is, last year what we learned from some of our challenges is we started the day at 9, we ended it at 2 for the student. Was there continuity of the learning across all of the buildings? And then really doing training all summer. So you've probably seen on Facebook, a lot of times it is on the East Orange City Facebook page. We do try to share as much information as possible. We've been training staff members all summer so that they are prepared for what is remote learning, so that they can do what is time on the computer and time off of the computer. And that's so important, because we're also wondering if our students get drained by hours and hours on the devices, and training our teachers on how to do what would be that synchronous, that interaction on the technology device, whether that's through collegial discourse, and then given task assignments that later on they would go and they would do on their own. So we had a successful summer program with the PAC, where we gave out boxes of supplies and materials that the students would be successful with what that summer program is. Learning from that, then what we currently have is our supervisors putting together a list of items that parents would need to purchase so that the child can be successful at home, items that the curriculum department will be given, and items that even on the building level that we're asking the administrators to put in packets, so that when we do begin to give out devices and boxes, that they can take these items home with them. So whether it's a quick transition from remote to hybrid, or hybrid back to full remote, because we just don't know what this pandemic it has to offer to us, and that Mr. Hassan has said is a need to be very fluid in how we navigate through this crisis.
Right, and thank you very much for that, for Champagne. I think that was very needed, because parents need to know from the remote to the hybrid, and when you explain what the difference were, I think that was really good, because it took me a minute to understand the hybrid, the remote and some other thing. But I do have a question, right? Going into the school year, what is the school district doing to prepare for in-person return to school? Give us an overview, and anybody can kind of answer that. What are we doing? Again, you talked about it before, in terms with kids, if they have to return to school after the 60 days, what's the plan for that, for them to walk into the schools?
So I can start it off. I mean, we're very deliberate in what it is that we're planning. At first, we were totally gung-ho. We knew that our kids needed to be in school, and we wanted them to be here. So it was our really desire to bring the kids in. But then we thought about it. Our teachers are 10 months, meaning that they're off in the summer. School ends in June, teachers are finished. Most of our administrators are 10 months. So if we're going to bring our kids in, we have to really make sure that our buildings are ready. We have to really make sure that those schedules are on point. We have to really make sure that the building is safe. And in order to do that, you need people to assist. So we needed to make sure that the moment our kids walk in from day one, everything will be up to par. Signage will be throughout the building. We'll have all the PPE. We'll have everything that our kids will need. So our ultimate goal is to bring our kids in. So that's what we're working on now. So as we begin the remote learning piece, we will also begin to make sure that our buildings are ready from day one. We also did, when we were going to bring all of our kids into the building on day one, we did a survey to our parents. We offered our parents, like the governor asked us to do, did they want to do remote only. Of the parents that responded, 82% of the parents were opting to keep their kids home anyway. So even if we were going to bring them in September, parents didn't feel comfortable enough sending their kids in. So we want them to feel comfortable, and that's why we're beginning to make sure that our building is absolutely ready when we bring them in.
I think that it's important that when we talk about our building ready, because there's always that issue of, well, there's staff that's in the building. And so when we talk about building ready and the responsibility of children who may not be as mature, who may be playing around a little bit more, and what that means as far as staff. Because in that concept of it takes a village, with our district being primarily a 10-month district, we do need our 10-month staff to come in to help us plan as a village to prepare for our students to come in. And so I love the concept that right now what we've been looking at is a phase-in option for our staff, a phase 1 where they'll come in a few days a week until we get to those 60 days when we're bringing our students in, and then all the way to a phase 3, just like we're doing a phase 1 where we're at remote, and a phase 2 where the students would come in cohorts once a week, and then that would go to 2 days a week. And then even in there, making sure that we are giving special needs to our vulnerable populations, like our special ed population, our pre-K population, our K-8 bilingual population that already have small class sizes, and that even in some of our discussion is bringing those individuals in earlier, because we want to make sure that we are preparing those appropriate accommodations and modifications that will align to those specialized populations and giving them the attention that legally they're supposed to have, that we want to give, because we want all of our kids to achieve in a very equitable society where things are in equity across the board. Ms. Santos, I don't know if there's something that you could add,
Yeah,
but
just
what
show
we're
them,
doing
Ms.
for our
Santos.
special
Yeah,
ed.
we're gonna keep this thing going.
The champagne
This
did
conversation is
perfectly.
good, yes.
Yes, she did. And I echo everything that she said. It's, again, I am very proud to be on a team where the superintendent and the executive panel are concerned about those vulnerable populations.
Right.
And trying to give some opportunity for those students to come into school a little sooner than, so that they can actually get some in person, because they have not been able to get all they need to get from a distance. On virtual, we do have a lot of services. We'll continue for the full remote. We're going to still have our wellness checks for our parents and for our children. We're going to have our occupational and physical therapy services done virtually initially. Our speech services will be done virtually, as well as our counseling services. Our staff will still provide case management, so students will get frequent calls, so will parents, to make sure they are actually managing the remote environment. But the ultimate goal is to reintroduce the students to school, the ultimate goal.
Well, listen, with that, Ms. Santo, talk about the special needy children again. We had a conversation before about the special needy children. Talk about some of the things that, our special ed students are going to be offered, some of the things out there, what your department's going to be doing. Because, parents been, again, asking about the special needy kids a lot. We got a letter the other day to the mayor. My son, really needs the one-on-one attention, because what he or she is doing at home, she can't give him that expertise. Talk about that very quickly, about the special ed
what we've been able to do, just to let you know, we had a very Ms. Champagne just mentioned our summer program that we had. We had 2 summer programs this summer. We had a summer extension for special needs students, and we were able to give students whose parents enrolled them 20 additional days of school in the month of July. During that time, we were able to offer everything remote. So we had a lot of services pushed in. Parents were on board with the scheduling. The scheduling was done in such a way so students were able to get their speech. Then they got their instruction. Then they got physical therapy. Then they got more instruction. Then they got occupational therapy before the day ended. Everything was done virtually in various Google classrooms. The parents were given lots of support on how to log into the various classrooms. We were able to push in individuals to keep one site open at times. If a parent can only manage one classroom, then we brought people in to assist them with that. Some things were done via phone, because after a while the screen was a bit much for parents and for children. So we did more phone calls. We did phone calls at 5 o'clock. We did them at 7 o'clock at night. We were very flexible with services this past summer. And I think we'll have to do the same thing when schools opens. We have to be flexible, because we do have a number of parents who are essential workers. So the remote environment is not going to work so much for them, because they're working at that time. And babysitters can do what parents can do to really encourage students to really focus on what they have to do. So we were able to be very flexible this summer, and I've noticed this summer from the month of July we can do a lot more.
than we did during the school year because we had more practice with it and we had to have a flexible spirit. So our parents are getting a little more. We did parent workshops. My social workers on my staff did workshops for the parents, and it was on what the parents were asking for. So parents had concerns with how do I divide home and school when they're the same place. We also did a workshop on just dealing with what's going on for the parent, because we have to realize our parents are traumatized. And when they're traumatized, of course the students are traumatized as well. So we had parents lock in, and they asked very good questions. We gave them a host of resources. It was happy to see their faces, and we'll continue to do more. We'll poll the parents to see what they want to have us provide them as far as parent support. We also attempted to do a parent workshop for autistic parents, but that didn't pan out, so we're going to try it again this time. We'll try it again soon in September. But what we're going to do is more contact. We find that more communication with parents is how the students are getting more services. And oftentimes, I have a list of parents that I call. I have a list of students that I call. And that's that simple call, how you doing today? How are things managing? Did you go to class today or online? Why didn't you go? I'll chime in and I'll do a lesson if I have to do with the students. So that was what we had to do this summer, and it kind of worked out pretty well. We'll do more this time. But if we're all full remote, we're going to push in more services for our children virtually.
Thank you, Ms. Santos. So, listen, I love this conversation. Let's talk about the busing.
So Ms. Santos, could you just talk about out-of-district special ed students and how that will work, as well as busing?
Right.
And then Dr. Harris could talk a little bit about busing in district.
There you go. Let's keep this going.
Okay. Some of our students who are highly specialized will be attending a school of some type this September, because they are in specialized programs where the schools can open because they don't have a large amount of students or staff in the buildings. For their particular busing programs, we will provide them busing. It's going to be based on what the school provides. At this particular time, no school that we're contracting with is going to provide a full day, but they will provide some on campus for certain students. So we will work with their schedules, and they're very different schedules. No two schools are the same, and we'll make sure students get to school. We already have made our contacts with the Essex County Commission and Sussex County Commission, our two vendors for transportation, to prepare for when we come back to school. Our applications are in both sites. As soon as we're ready to come back to school, we have a plan in place. Busing will start for my children.
Is there a number that the parents can call, if they needed to get in contact with the special ed need office?
Sure, sure.
Can you give those numbers out?
Sure. The main number for my office is 973-266-5785. My email address is t.hardin, Hardin, @eastorange.k12.nj.us.
Thank you. I do have a question. When school do start, I mean, after the between 30 and 60 days, especially with the remote, will the teachers actually be in the classrooms when we're going remotely? Will they be in the classroom instructing from that classroom?
So I'm going to answer that in two parts.
Okay.
I'll let Ms. Champagne answer the other part, because
All right.
it falls into the CNI area. Our plan is also to the phase them in, and I spoke to you, Mayor, sincerely about that, because
Yes.
we really want to open up the schools. We do understand that we're in a medical pandemic. So our plan with the phase in, and some information will be more released tomorrow as I submitted it to New Jersey Department of Education, is to phase our staff in from day one.
Okay.
And what that looks like will be some days that they will be coming in. Initially, I wanted to propose that they would come in 4 days a week, with the Wednesday being a deep cleaning day. But now after doing a revision to the plan, we're looking at bringing them some days, and we're going to make that announcement officially tomorrow. And I really want to just thank the team that we came up with a great idea.
Right.
And as we looked at, even when we hosted the meeting with the superintendents that we spoke about earlier today, they had some of the same concept. That's why we looked at parallel concerns. Those are some of the parallel concerns, because we all know we need to open up the schools in the best way we can as it relates to health and safety, and also providing equitable instruction for students. So I don't know, Ms. Champagne, want to share a little bit more about that?
So I really want to say that we talked a little bit about the post-traumatic situation going on for our children. We talked about it for our parents, and that's also a situation for our staff. Having been removed from the school, and how do you come back to the school, and the fears that come with that. So with that, it does mean a gradual bring in, because we have to begin to change the mindset. We have to have them come in gradually to see that our buildings are safe, that things are being put in place to ensure that their safety. And then the other part of it is the understanding that when we do bring the kids in, that there are guidelines that speaks to a certain percentage, right now 25% of what would be the building capacity. So it's not gonna be a situation where when the kids come in, they're gonna come in every day. It's gonna be a situation based on 25% when they come in. They're only gonna come in once a week. But coming in once a week, it'll be a cohort A, a cohort B, a cohort C, and a cohort D, and that Wednesday being almost what is a sacred day. And why that's sacred? Because we want to go in and we want to do this deep cleaning of our buildings every single week. That doesn't mean that we don't do the surface cleaning that happens every single day, but being able to really trace who was in the building at what particular time, what group of students were in the building at what particular time, following that when we've done the cleaning, should anything happen.
Right.
We want our parents, we want our staff, we want our community to know that we're paying very close attention to all of that. So yes, ideally, our teachers will be in the building, but we too have to bring them in so that they feel comfortable, so they can get over, and deal with the crisis that is before them. And because I don't want to go any further before we go back to the transportation piece, because we talked a little bit about
Right.
transportation for
Right.
special ed, but we do have another transportation issue when we say all those challenges that do exist right now when we're talking about this crisis. And Dr. Harvest, if you can just share with us a little bit on how we're addressing our transportation issues across the district.
Sure, absolutely. As Ms. Champagne and Mr. Hassan talked about the number of students and staff that we're phasing in, so goes transportation. Our buses normally transport 52 students. You cannot put 52 students on a bus at this point in time. At one point in time, East Orange had what we call magnet schools, and parents were able to send their child to any school that they wanted within East Orange. We no longer do magnet schools. Now our students, our elementary school students, attend the school that's in their neighborhood. So they are able to walk to their neighborhood. Even though we have students attending neighborhood schools, we're still doing what we call courtesy busing. Courtesy busing to the tune of $1.5 million. Money that is not refunded to us because it was a courtesy. We weren't supposed to do it, but we were offering our students a courtesy. With all that we're doing now, with the PPE and all of the different types of equipment that we are ordering for our schools to make sure that our kids are in a healthy and safe environment, we're not going to be able to have that money for the transportation. So one of the things that we are going to cut back on now, or we're going to end, is the courtesy busing. We will no longer be busing students throughout the city as a courtesy. One of the reasons why, because our transportation line would double or triple. Because where we had 52 students on a bus, we could only now put 11 students on a bus. So if you put 11 students on a bus, the bus has to be clean in between doing the different routes and different things like that. It will take us the entire day to bus that population to school. So our placement letters are going out next week. Because school was closed, we weren't able to get the letters out to some of the parents of our pre-K students and K students. So everyone from pre-K to grade 9 will get a placement letter. In that letter is going to let the students know that we will no longer be offering courtesy busing. So if there's a parent who has their child in a school that's not in their neighborhood, we will move that child back to their neighborhood school. However, if you want them to stay where they are, then it will be up to the parent to get the child back and forth to school.
And as Dr. Harvest starts mentioning about the letters that we're sending out, because our district, for the most part, our administrators are 10-month administrators, our 10-month administrators are just going to start coming back next week. At that point, I did notice one of the questions was, how do we know about parent meetings at particular schools? So once we meet with the administrators next week, we talk to them and collaborate around finalizing some of the things with the remote plan and then how that leads to hybrid, and they begin to develop what is their entry plan as well. They'll be sending out letters to the parents. They'll also let the parents know when they'll be having their school meetings as well too, because communication is key. So as much as things are the same, there's also all those things that become a little different based on the structure of the school, where the school is located,
Right,
if it's a
right.
thematic school. So some things have to come from the building principal, as well as that's that first face there that the parents like to see and know, get to know. This is the person that we're communicating with throughout the course of the school year, because they are the caretakers of our children. Also, in our new learning management system, Schoology, those administrators will be monitoring that system as well too, to see the interaction between the students and the teachers, whether or not they're doing collegial discourse through just asking a question and a response on that question, or whether it is something that's a little bit more virtual or videotapes that have been placed on there. The purpose of this is because we want to make sure that our remote instruction becomes great instruction and that we are addressing those essential standards, because what we know is that there's already an achievement gap that has occurred since March. And that if we look at some of the data, there was already an achievement gap that existed within inside of the school district. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to make that gap even wider. We want to make sure that our students are still able to complete globally after all of this. So that's where I really urge the parents to encourage their students that in the morning, they get up every single morning, that they have their breakfast, that they get dressed appropriate for school, that it has to be as normal. If this is our new normal, then it has to be part of the expectation of day to day, so that when they transition back into school, it's not something we don't want to do. Right. And the same way that we're asking the parents to help with that with the students at home, then we're also asking our staff to engage the students in this virtual learning and this synchronous learning, to make sure that there are project-based learning that's going on, that packets are being sent home, that there are artifacts. So one of the things that we're doing, we've gotten a donor that's supposed to be roughly about $100,000 with Science to Science. And Science to Science will be doing virtual science labs with many of our elementary school kids, and they'll be sending us the packet so that when we do the hybrid, they'll be able to do that at home. And while they're doing that at home and in the school, at the same time, because they're doing the virtual component, that the students will be able to see it, whether they're home or inside of the classroom. So we really are thinking of innovative ways to try to make remote learning engaging, fun, and still getting that core root out of it. But I'm going to say that the children, the students, they've been probably ready for remote learning way before we were. There's so many of them that are on these gaming systems all day long, you know, how they get attracted to all of the technology. It may be the adults that are more fearful of it than them. And what I really ask of everyone is that we take those bold risks, those leaps, and we really say, this is the time for us to adjust to what the world is adjusting to, and to land out on top of all of that.
Right, and Ms. Champagne, thank you for that. So again, you know, with this whole transition and with this COVID, again, we're looking at a different norm, right? And when you talked about our students, parents have to become a little more involved than ever now, right? And some of our students are going to have to be very attentive, because now, you know, they're actually on their own. But when you're on your own, you have to be responsible to get online on time and make sure you're in front of that classroom. What measures do we have for a student that, say, for instance, he go into the chat and say they need help, you know, during the school? What measures do we have, and what programs do we have for kids that need the extra help?
So I'm going to briefly just mention one new program that we're bringing on board, and then that's Dr. Harvest's bill, and so I'm going to throw it over there. But we have purchased what will be Gaggle, and Gaggle is an internet monitoring system. Gaggle is what it's called. Gaggle, Gaggle, right? And that'll be up on our website. We will also be sending that information home to the parents. It monitors things that are being done in our Google OneDrive. If a student is saying anything that may seem like it's suicidal, that they're depressed, anything that may deal with gangs or fighting or things like, they're monitoring that 24/7. So even during some of our summer programs, we've actually been alerted to some of those things, and we've actually partnered with the East Orange Police Department with that as well too. So Mr. Sims, who is our person in charge of security, he gets those alerts, and depending on the levels of those alerts, then we reach out to those individuals in the city that would help us with that as well too. So that's when you're talking about the big case. But I do know that Dr. Harvest and her team has been really working well, closely on the social emotional learning piece.
Right. So in the Department of Student Support Services, we have our child study team members, we have our school guidance counselors, we have our school social workers, we have our attendance officers. We closely monitor who is online what they're doing online or whether or not they show up online. So toward the end of the year, our attendance officers started going back out. We started going to homes, knocking on doors. Hey mom, do you know that your child is not participating? Our school social workers, our guidance counselors, they're making phone calls. They're talking to the students to see what's going on, how can we help you? They're talking to the parents, how can we help you? Child study team members, they're doing the same thing. We have our teacher assistants, they're still working. So in our special ed classrooms, in our pre-K classrooms, we have teachers assistants assigned, and they are assisting the teacher in the classroom. So those students who are falling behind, whether they're in an inclusion class, whether they're in a self-contained class, whether they're in a pre-K class, they are getting the assistance that they need. And it's not just the student support services. While we're on remote status, we're gonna have grab and go for breakfast and lunch. We're still gonna be feeding our kids. So that's gonna be rolled out as well. So while they're home with their studies, they will also be able to come out at least 1 or 2 times a week, and we will give them their breakfast and lunch for each day so that we know that all of our kids will have a meal the 5 days of the week. That school's in
Dr.
session.
Harvard, talk about the sport activities in terms of the do's and don'ts when it comes to football, basketball. Are they having outdoor track, or it's getting cold? Talk about the sports in terms of what are we doing in terms of our young people. Are we having them or we not? I know I had an opportunity to go by the stadium and I saw some of our young men over there, social distance but practicing. So it's going to be a football season, basketball season, indoor track season, girls basketball. Can you talk about that?
Well, as Mr. Hassan says, it's fluid. We follow the direction of the NJSIA, and for right now, they're telling us, okay, start the conditioning with your guys for football, get them out on the field, hopefully we'll have a game by October. But we all know that changes every day. We're never gonna put our kids at risk.
Right.
So we're gonna follow whatever those guidelines are right now. As far as basketball season, football season, they're saying it's a go, but now kids on high school teams they're testing positive. So it's only gonna be a matter of time before a real decision is made. Basketball season, I think they're gonna need more data. You can't really say it's gonna happen right now. We have to see how things are gonna turn out.
And that's a good segue, Dr. Harper, so I appreciate that. So just today, in reference to basketball, is that NJSIAA came out and said that all indoor sports will be held into February of 2021. So right now, we had our girls actually, they started with the girls for volleyball. Now girls volleyball has now ceased. So it's no more indoor sports until February 2021, which actually encompasses the basketball season. So what they're trying to say is that it will start after that. So we're taking the guidance, as Dr. Harper just stated, from NJSIA. They're allowing the sports that are outside to continue, but we have also seen reports where some football teams have been high school, not as well as the college, because last time we spoke about Rutgers University, Mayor. But just as recent as about 2 days ago, one school district had to suspend the whole football program and put, for a month until they can re-engage that process. Currently, they're kind of, even though we see advertisements for football, they're kind of starting to season around mid-October, and that can also change. And right now, they're just doing conditioning, as Dr. Harper stated earlier.
And I'm glad we're having that conversation around the sports, because again brings us to responsibility, right? With everyone, but more so with our young people, as the urban mayors, that we give a daily report, and we tell our young people one situation with our young people being in around a party or a group of people or their peers, and then you go back and practice on that football field, or you practice on that basketball team, you can affect everybody, right? So the biggest thing is we have to take responsibility of who we're around, the gatherings. So I'm glad we talked about that, because we want our young people to be able to be active, but again, you hear it every week from all the professional people, CDC, Dr. Griffin, different health departments, all of you, and myself. You have to be vigilant, because one person, and you got 30 people on the field, can affect everybody. And that can happen. I mean, we had a situation right here in the city. 2 of our individuals got caught. Now they're out for 14 days because of that one person. They got tested for COVID-19. So we are in a serious situation, but I think that if we do everything we can to making sure we follow the rules and follow the executive order of our governor, that we can kind of get past this stuff, but it's going to take a process. Ms. Hassan, is there anything else? I mean, I know we've been talking about remote, we've been talking about we talked about the food distribution. Is there anything else in terms of, let's talk about some of the teachers. What's the feel out there with our teachers? You know I hear sometimes the teachers saying, and you know, they look at News 12, that they want to feel safe, they don't feel safe. What's the measures? What's some of the measures that y'all putting in the schools to make sure that our teachers, if they had to return, to make sure that they're safe in those schools?
So I think that, you know, I truly believe that our educator practitioners are truly resilient, but that you're right, Mayor, they do watch, you know, the media, and the media, depending on what you look at from the left or right, they get a different view based upon their mindset. But the thing is about that I really believe they believe about educating students. The main thing is they're concerned about their wellness and health and safety, because just like Dr. Harvey spoke about earlier, is that their families have been impacted through COVID as well. So, you know, some teachers and practitioners have children at home. Mm-hmm. Some people are taking care of other family members, as well as some of the elderly population. So those are some of the concerns that the teachers have. So, you know, that's why our intent is, as we phase the teachers back into the school, is to allow them to make those adjustments as they have to make adjustments as well. Because it is a real concern for our family members out in the community. And we want to make sure, as we phase them in, that we phase them into facilities as we're prepping the facilities to be up to its readiness. And when we bring in a small population that we're proposing, it actually works out for them too. And it actually helps them to take care of some things at home. I don't know if Dr. Harvest want to share anything else in reference to that.
No, well, we were recipients of the CARES Funding Act. So with the CARES Funding Act, we have been preparing our buildings. We got the backpacks with the sprayers to keep the schools and our classrooms disinfected. We have the PPE cloth for our students and for our staff. We've been putting up the sneeze guards in all of the schools and our main offices to make sure that our office staff, that they're kept safe. We're working with, and that's another thing, with our building principals coming in now. They'll be able to look at their buildings and they'll be able to decide how they're going to direct traffic within their buildings. Parents are going to have to get used to the new way that we're going to have it. We won't be able to have parents wander throughout the buildings or to come in and go visit their child in the classroom. So a lot of those things will be changed as well. So there are a lot of things that we're putting in place to ensure the health and safety of not only our staff, but our students as well.
And because communication is so vital and so important, we want to make sure that we have the current mailing addresses. A lot of times mail is coming back and we're trying to make sure we get the information out, and then it's, well, we weren't told this or we didn't hear about this piece of it. And one of the big things I did notice on the questions that we received was in reference to the PEBT cards and why maybe one individual didn't get it or others got it, and we really want to mention that that's a federal program that's attached to the lunch application that really has nothing to do with the school district itself. That at the beginning of the year, we are asking over and over again, please fill out the lunch applications, please fill out the lunch applications, and that was a direct result of those individuals and how they filled out the lunch application, and that was something that was sent out from the federal government. So now there's no way to backtrack. That was based on what was 1920. Going into the 2021 school year, we will again in September post the lunch application, try to get 100% of our parents to apply for the lunch applications, to fill in the information, and then if something like that happens to be a direct reflection of that, then hopefully the things that we are sending phone blasts out for and asking to happen all the time is something that we actually have completed now.
Thank you.
So filling out the lunch applications is very important.
Right.
Filling out very, very important.
And having the correct address, Mayor, is also very important.
Yeah,
Because a lot of parents say, well, how is my child going to that school? I want them to go to this school because it's closer to me. But when we pull up your address, you moved 4 years ago and you didn't change the address.
Important.
So that's very, extremely important.
Listen, I always say you can't move from Walnut Street and then move over to Brookwood and then expecting your child to go over to Langston Hill School and you never gave your address to the school. You have to give the proper information to the school. If you change your phone, don't expect the school to have your new cell number. You have to get a school your new cell number. It's no different than we always say we have this thing when we do robocalls.
Right, yes.
And some people say, man, I never get your calls. And then we say, why not? Oh, I changed my number. We wouldn't know you changed your number. So parents, if you change your cell phone, if you change your house phone, if you change your address, it's so important for the school district to get updates. It's your responsibility to make sure the schools get the updates, because I know that they do give out the information, but we need your help to do that also. So I'm going to go to Connie right quick and see some of the questions that's on our Facebook, on social media, so y'all guys get an opportunity to ask some of the questions, Connie. And give out the phone number too that they can call right quick. Or you gave that out.
Which phone number, Mayor?
The phone number you told me to say that you were going to
No,
talk
it's
about.
too late. Well, they're already on, so yeah. So, but if you do have any issues, you can always reach out to the Mayor's Office of Constituent Services at 973-266-5151. That number again is 973-266-5151. Now this question, we've gotten this from several folks, and so I'll just put it all together. We've talked a lot about the students and the teachers, but what about the other staff? So the secretaries, custodians, teachers' assistants, lunch aides, they're asking, when are they going to know what's going on? Are you going to have a meeting coming up? And especially, what about those who also have children who are at home? What are they to do?
I mean, a great question. The staff they're inclusive to all staff. So when we talk about the plan of action and how we are phasing staff in, they're included in that process as well. And most the staff who've been 12 months have received that information. A lot of the staff you may be talking about right now are the 10-month staff. Some information will be coming from their building principals as we meet with the building principal, because the building principal will be talking directly to their direct staff. Guidance will be coming out tomorrow, as I previously stated earlier, in reference to what I had submitted to the state of New Jersey as our phase-in plan and the revisions to what we had initially as the hybrid plan. So now, since we're full remote, once we get that, it's pending approval, but what I will get out tomorrow is for what is for all staff. And that's inclusive to what you just talked about, those stakeholders. But for those stakeholders, the same thing for the teachers. We want to make sure we bring them back in the facilities. We're trying to be safe as well. And health and safety is always is paramount to be important.
Okay, and another question that's come up a few times from different parents are those parents who have children who are pre-K, kindergarten. I think they're really concerned about what will remote learning look like for them.
Right, and that's what the population of, we're just so anxious to get back in. So we know that our pre-K kids cannot sit in front of a computer the entire day. So what we're working with, we know that they need the interaction. Those are the kids who really need that socialization piece. So we're working to make sure that our teachers have at least the morning message, at least 30 to 45 minutes of screen time with the students so we can get them prepared as they come back in. And then the rest of the units, they'll still go through their regular curriculum, the pre-K curriculum, but we cannot give them that much screen time, because right now it's only recommended that they get 15 to 20 minutes each day, and we just extend it just a little bit longer because they're so excited when they see their peers. They're so excited when they see their teachers. So we have to provide them with that socialization piece and then bringing in a snippet of a lesson that will hold their attention, and the teacher can integrate that with the unit that they can follow throughout that whole entire day.
Okay, and this question sounds actually like it's probably come from a student. Will students still be required to wear their school uniforms when they're doing school during the day? And if so, is it the same dress code as before, or is there going to be some sort of dress code if it's not the uniform?
Right, so we are going to require students to still wear their same uniform. Again, that information is going to come out, it's building specific, so the building principal will roll that out. Students will have enough time to prepare, because remember, we're not phasing them in until November or so, and they will have that information before that time comes.
No, I think they're asking while they're on. while they're remote.
And I think one of the things that I said was, it's important that we get up in the morning, that we wash and clean our face and brush our teeth and get dressed appropriate for what is teaching and learning for all of the stakeholders, whether that's the teacher, whether that's the student, because it's almost like, you dress for the job that you want. Versus maybe the one that you don't have at that point, and that we want to be very consistent with those expectations around there. It's also important to note that every school doesn't have a uniform, right? And so that's where Dr. Harvest says that some of the things become very building specific and those directions for the administrator. But what I would like to see is that if we're starting classes at 8:30, then everybody should be up, dressed, and prepared for learning at 8:30.
Larry, you got some more questions? No?
Do you have any more questions? Listen, one thing about these weekly meetings, first of all, I'm very grateful for all of you, and I know that this has been a task for all of you, and I really commend you, because I know that how each and every day in City Hall things change for us. We're not even open right now ourselves. And we have an action plan, a re-entry plan back into City Hall. We have to get all the employees back in. So I know how tedious it can be for all of you. And how many students we have in the district?
10,000.
10,000 students. So and employees, how many do y'all have over in the district?
Almost 800.
800. So
That's just the teachers.
right. That's just,
Yeah,
right.
about 1,500.
Right, so I know what y'all are going through. Now, we only about 1,000, so, and we get it. Is there anything else that we should be sharing with the parents? Because I know that, again, when we announced that we're bringing our superintendent on, and Dr. Harvest, and Ms. Champagne, and all of you, and Ms. Santo, really our numbers go up drastically, because this school thing has been really just throughout the state, really. It's not just here in the city of East Orange, but being the mayor, I have to make sure that we do what we have to do here. Is there anything else?
I would just put it out to the parents
Right.
and give them, if they want to say any last minute
Right.
words, and then I can just,
I think that the one thing that I would ask parents to do is just pay attention to our website, to our Facebook page, that we have plenty of parent universities that have already occurred, parent workshops that will be going on as we're going through the month of September, that September the 3rd, the 8th, the 9th, there are a slew of workshops that are going to be really important to the parents learning how to navigate through our new learning management system, the parents helping their students log on, because there are a lot of new things that are occurring in the midst of, a lot of people say, well, why are we doing so many changes in the middle of a pandemic? But the world does keep going. And so in the process of that, it's important that we try to provide as much access as possible to our parents, to our students, to our staff, and that every day we're sending out flyers and notification, and we really want to emphasize the importance of it takes a village, and we can't do this without the support and help of the parents.
And I would just like to say to parents, we get it. We know what you're going through. We are parents, we are grandparents. I have a 5-year-old grandson who will be entering kindergarten, who cannot enter kindergarten because this district is also on remote learning status. You're torn. You want them in school to have all the excitement, to learn, to get that good foundation, but then you're worried about when they go to school, who is watching out for their health and safety. So parents, how can you help us to get the children ready to go to school? Help them to wear a mask. Make sure that they know how to keep that mask on and the purpose for having that mask. We want your children in. We cannot wait to have them come back in, but we want to make sure that we can provide them with a safe and healthy environment.
Ms. Santos.
And also I wanted to add, I have parents that call and they keep saying PPE. What does that mean to me? What does it mean to the school district? And do we actually have it? Our superintendent has ordered a slew of things, levels of PPE. We are ready for your youngsters to come back and to keep them safe. Nurses will have certain things, staff will have certain things, and we ordered for your youngsters to have certain things. Our maintenance division has certain things also. Parents believe that I don't see you clean. I don't see the social distancing. I'm at work. Is it really going to happen? And that's fearful to them. It will happen because we're gonna follow the CDC guidelines in consultation with our health officer and our health director. We are constantly worrying about making sure we're following it to the T, because that's gonna get us back into schools.
Right, and listen, you couldn't have said that any better. Listen, we've been stressing it. Every week I'm getting Facebook message, Mayor, folks are gathering with no masks on. Mayor, I walked through my hallway, some of the people didn't have masks on. But, you know, I said last week, we need our community, because they always try to say that they need to call the police department. Nope, we don't need to call the police department for something like that. Our community have to become policing, community policing, right? And I don't mean you try to take the law in your hand. What we're saying is that some of these kids you know, some of these families you know, you have to tell them, right? Hey, put that mask on. Now, we've been having incidents where people get very little emotional and little uptight sometimes, but people have to realize that putting a mask on have curbed this virus, right? And it's a proven statistic shows it, right? And the more we stay in compliance, as each and every one of us said today on this panel, that's the #1 priority that we have to do. So again, we're going to continue to ask everybody in the community. You heard Ms. Champagne say earlier, we become that village, right? And if we that village, then we have to tell our family members, we have to tell our friends, we have to tell that young man or that young lady that you know that you have to wear your mask, you have to practice social distance. You cannot leave from outside and go home and affect your mom or your father or your grandmother or your brother. It can happen, because it's still happening when we are not following the rules. So we really need all of you to just stay vigilant here in the city of East Orange. I'm very happy that we had this discussion again, Mr. Superintendent. I hope the parents out there with all your questions and concerns, listen, we had the school district on, we did a community meeting with all of you, that went very well. Then we came back here on our weekly meeting to give information. I want to just tell y'all, anytime that y'all want to come on during the community meeting, we haven't stopped our weekly community meetings only because we know that people are still out in our community and our residents still want information provided. So at any time y'all want to come on and have a platform and talk about some things, because we're a team, you know, from the district to the city, to city council, to the board members, to our parents, to the faculty. All of us is a team, and we're going to have to work together to get through this. So with that, very quickly, Dr. Griffin, I know you way and you're on timeout over there. Can you come back for a few minutes? And we just want you to close out with some important information. And just, our test and say, Ms. Antonio, I don't want you to tell your friends that I kicked you off the panel. But Dr. Griffin, just, close out with the importance of our testing sites. Again, you can kind of like piggyback on some of the things I said. Then I'm just going to close out with some of the things that we got coming forward and then let everybody go.
Sure. As I mentioned, testing is still very important. It's important for the adults, it's important for the children as well. And so we will be having, or opening our testing site tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And even if you haven't scheduled an appointment, you can very well visit the site and just walk up so that you can get tested. In addition to our testing site, there are multiple agencies, whether they're medical providers or pharmacies, offering testing as well here within the city, as well as also in the county and also the state. So please definitely continue to take advantage of testing. Make sure that you have an understanding of where you stand related to COVID, and it's even more so, as I mentioned before, more so important now as we're ending August and we're entering into September, because we have that flu season that is quickly approaching. And so we want to make sure that everybody remains healthy. We know that there are a lot of similarities between COVID symptoms and flu-like symptoms, and so you want to make sure that for the respiratory illness that we have a vaccine for, that you protect yourself so that then we can minimize the contagious illnesses that are circulating within the community as flu season approaches.
Thank you, Dr. Griffin. Just very quickly, I just want to give you some updates. You know, we are very excited to launch our rental assistant grant program. On August the 24th, we will be announcing our rental assistance. So if there's anyone out there, any renter who is experiencing financial impact by the pandemic and have been unable to make your rent payments, please, on August 24th, we will be announcing a program that will give you some help. That includes those who have experienced a loss also of income reduction and also in hours at your job, and if you're on unemployment. Again, August 24th, we will be launching our rental assistant grant program here in the city of East Orange, and that would be on Monday. Now, the program will be administered by the Civic Card Community Foundation. I'm going to say that again. You do have to apply. The program will be administered through the Civic Care Community Foundation. Eligible households can receive up to $3,500, or a lump sum payment can be made directly to your landlord. So your landlord have to have some information. You have to bring it to the Civic Card Community Foundation. But again, if you need information, our email is the rentalassistant@isaiahhouse.org or East Orange cdc@aol.com. Again, that's going to be a great program for those who are out there. And Mr. Superintendent, if y'all want to kind of put it on your website, it's going to be good for folks in the community who are struggling with paying their rent, and we know how important it is for folks to choose between buying groceries and paying rent, so we want to help with that. We also very quickly want to really give our young people a round of applause for their swept rally yesterday, which they did an outstanding job. They executed a successful rally yesterday from Sussex Avenue all the way up to City Hall. Our young people did an outstanding job, and their speeches, and they did poetry. So again, we are so proud of our young people in the city of East Orange to allow them to not only know that they have a voice and that they are a part of this community. And yesterday, not only folks here in the city of East Orange had an opportunity to hear their voice and their concern, but they also, throughout Essex County and the state of New Jersey, heard your voice about justice. So we want our young people to keep on doing what they need to do to fight for justice, but we also say do it in a peaceful manner. We don't have to tear up our town, we don't have to tear up a car, we don't have to do none of that. I always say your voices matter. So again, big kudos to our young people. Also, we have a backpack giveaway this Saturday. It's a partnership with Ministry for His Glory Ministries. It's hosting a back to school giveaway. So also, if y'all want to post that, and that's going to be right on the corner of Lincoln and William Street on Saturday at, what time is that, Connie? At 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Children will receive school supplies, snacks, and other things. So come on out. I know our kids really need to have these supplies to when they decide, but it's good for the community anyway. Even if you have a backpack, please come get the supplies. You can always use them. Also, don't forget about the census. The census are very important. We've been pushing the census from day one here in the city of East Orange. Those who haven't filled out the census, please fill out the census. And those who have filled out the census, we challenge you to go to 5 individuals who you think that didn't fill out the census, and please talk to them about the importance of the census. And the census is so important because that's how we get funded in our community, such as East Orange, and we can use every dollar. You know, we have our school district that's here with trying to re-enter the school and the opening of the schools. But again, funding's come through that census, our street paving, our police department, DPW. So we're asking everybody to be counted, and East Orange wants to be counted, and we need to be counted. And really, the last thing is our food distribution. We continue every week to make sure that those who live in our community never go without having food, from our recreation department to our senior services, Rita Butts, and that's under Dr. Griffin's tutelage. Also, on this Friday at 5:30, Councilman Bert Linnaeus and Councilman Vernon Pullins, along with myself, we will be doing a food distribution at 120 Rhode Island Avenue. First come, first served, for 100 pieces that we have. So please come on out. So with that, East Orange, we're gonna close out the night. I want to thank everybody for really just tuning in. I'm sure that the information that our superintendent and his team gave out tonight was very valuable. If you have any questions, I just ask everybody, if you have any questions for our school districts, please do not allow folks to give you false information, right? Call our school district, go on their website, look at the information, because a lot of times when false information is out there, it has people in alarm for no reason. It's no different with city information. If you have any concerns about what's going on in the city, please call the Mayor's Office of Constituent Services at 973-266-5151. I'm gonna close out, but we want you to join us tonight over at Campus High School. If it's not sold out, we're doing our drive-in movie over at Campus High School. You had to go online, you had to register, but if not, we're coming back next week with a movie here in the city of East Orange for our residents. So again, I want to say good night to everyone. May God bless you, may God bless your families, and may God bless East Orange.